Welcome to Burning Bright, a weekly podcast presenting poetry and prose from Passager. Passager's 2021 Poetry Contest issue hit the stands recently. Last week, we played work by 4 of the contest's winners. This week, we're highlighting the 2021 Passager Poet, Gail DiMaggio. Gail started out writing short stories, but she said she noticed that all her stories, quote, ended in a passage that left the narrative behind and indulged in a kind of riff of associations and images. She said, "It finally dawned on me that those sections were my attempt to write the poem of the story, which apparently was what I really wanted to do. So I quit short stories and just accepted that whatever I intended, I was a poet." The 5 poems of Gail's that Passager published are mettas, M-E-T-T-A's. She said that the Buddhist practice of metta involves choosing one person, dog, star, grain of sand, or Bismarck palm maybe, and focusing on the hope that they will find peace or joy or compassion or any other condition that might lighten their suffering. A metta poem tries to mimic that experience. She said metta is not a prayer addressed to God. She said, "In metta, I'm not hoping to change anything but my own heart." One of the things Gail DiMaggio remembers about her grandmother was her gardens. "My grandmother's gardens were breathtaking," she said. Here's Gail's poem, Metta for Pierre Ramini. "Forced to marry my grandfather, that mean gambler, that hulk shouting from the upstairs bedroom. Metta for the girl before the wife, before the woman who nursed 2 babies through influenza, watched them die, who spent 30 years of precious some days waiting for the 5 a.m. bus, for the factory whistle, for the iris to bloom and the orchard to fruit. Once I heard the night wrangle her wife rage untranslatable, then his fist at the wall, then the door in its frame, and he slept that night in the unheated garage." She could make him. She hated old age, and the priest, and the son-in-law who wouldn't visit. Her final year, she and I stood at lawn's edge, my mother's iris royal at our feet. "Your mother," she said, "why don't she dig 'em before the middle goes brown?" For maybe an hour, I sat beside her, on the sun-warmed stone, in somebody else's garden, in April. Metta for Pierre Ramini, by 2021 Passager Poet Gail DiMaggio. She said, "I am deeply interested in the question of how art and creativity relate to the human struggle to live with and survive suffering." Here's her poem, Metta for Judy, who loved a biker, briefly. Also an accountant, the Friday night drummer, 2 guitar guys, the man her sister wanted but couldn't keep. Nancy, known among us for toxic intrusions, asks, "How many?" And Judy answers, 23 if you don't count Ted. No one, not even Nancy, asks why we shouldn't count Ted, and Judy toasts the 4 of us, lifting her glass in both arthritic hands. She wouldn't recognize metta. She'd think it some flimsy kind of prayer and pointless, since all on her own she'd escaped her mother's Sunday organ, that rugged cross, that mighty fortress. These days she's the woman who won't tolerate the landlord, mother her grown sons, ever again walk straight ahead on those warped legs. But she does have that gift for men. 3 of them, willing to climb steep stairs for her, under a 1/4 ton of baby grand. I'd say, may she know peace. But what would Judy want with peace? So instead I'd just give her this dream. Her hands, young again, smooth again, and once more supple. And then, all night, every night, she'll make that baby grand boogie. Metta for Judy, who loved a biker, by 2021 Passager Poet Gail DiMaggio. Gail said the poem gave her a chance to, quote, enjoy my experience of Judy, who is pretty much the way she appears in the poem. Funny, uncompromising in a crazy way, and a really great jazz pianist. I got a chance to be sad with her that she can't play anymore, and celebrate with her what it felt like to be there when she could still make that baby grand boogie. My husband was a jazz musician, she said, so that's in there a bit too. Gail said, writing during COVID gave me a way to examine the question I was struggling hardest to answer: how to endure all the suffering in me, around me, without shutting down my heart. To buy Passager's 2021 Poetry Contest issue, to subscribe to or learn more about Passager and its commitment to writers over 50, go to passagerbooks.com. You can download Burning Bright from Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and various other podcast apps. For Kendra, Mary, Christine, Roseanne, and the rest of the Passager staff, I'm John Shore.